The last two demand curve shifters we're going to go over are expectations and preferences, and we'll go over them simultaneously in the same video because frankly they're the easiest ones to cover. So far we've covered a change in the number of consumers, we've covered change in the income levels of consumers as a demand curve shifter, and we've covered a change in the price of complements or substitutable goods. So next, let's take a look at preferences. Okay, so a change in the preferences for a product. Many times we're talking about fads here. So for instance, it's commonplace for people to put on flashy tires and rims on their cars these days. It wasn't that big of a deal 10 years ago, for instance, in the early 2000s, early mid 2000s. People drove off the lot in a new car and they typically didn't alter their tires and rims when they drove off the lot. Now it's becoming commonplace that people do. Okay, so over the last 10 years, then, if we were to graph the demand for new tires and rims, what would have happened due to this change in the preferences for new tires and rims? Well, that would be reflected as an increase in the demand for new tires and rims over the last 10 years. You would have seen the demand for these products shift to the right. On the other hand, preferences doesn't have to be all about fads. These were, let me mark this just so we can stay consistent. These are tires and rims. Okay. Doesn't have to be all about fads, however, a change in preferences. It can be something such as a report comes out from the Food and Drug Administration that says that eating an aspirin a day, in fact, not only doesn't have any health benefits, it can actually hurt you. It can cause greater levels of stomach bleeding. It can cause any number of medical complications. Okay, so people in the past were told that taking an aspirin a day was a good thing. Now the Food and Drug Administration comes out and says it's a bad thing. Well, if we assume that before the FDA came out with this report, the demand for aspirin was there, after they come out with the report, obviously some people are going to take that report to heart and they are going to decrease their demand for aspirin at any price level of aspirin. Okay, so this would be, again, a change in the preference for the use of aspirin as a daily sort of health regimen. Okay, so again, preferences doesn't have to be all about fads. It can be something like health outcomes. It can be anything that changes a consumer's or influences a consumer's desire to have the product. Okay, an increase in preferences, consumers shifting over to the product, you'd see an increase in the demand. Shifting away from the product, you'd see a decrease in demand. What about expectations? Well, expectations is just as easy. Expectations. That's how you spell it. Okay, so assume we have the market demand for plywood in the East Coast of the United States. So this is the market demand for plywood in the East Coast of the United States. Well, assume that the National Weather Service says that there's a hurricane 2 days away off the coast, and it's heading this direction. What's going to happen to the demand for plywood in the coastal regions of the country? Well, it's going to increase. It's going to increase because people have to board up their windows and doors to protect them from wind and flying debris. So you would see an increase in the demand for plywood in these regions if it was expected that a hurricane was going to hit sometime in the near future. On the other hand, let's assume that we have the market demand for portable generators. Okay, and assume that we are, this is the market demand for portable generators, say in September, okay, of some particular year, okay. What would happen to the demand for portable generators if we were expected to have a mild winter? Okay, so the Climatological Service of the United States predicted a more mild winter. Well, typically people use portable generators when the power goes out, and the power typically goes out when you get ice and snow and wind and such. So if the Weather Service was predicting a unusually mild winter, you would probably see the demand for generators in September fall. Okay, people would simply not not partake in preventative maintenance of their house by purchasing a generator, because they think that the probability of their power going out would probably be less if the winter is mild than when it's a harsh winter. So you'd see the demand for portable generators early, mid-fall, just before winter. You'd see that demand for portable generators shift to the left. Why? Because the expectation of a harsh winter has fallen. This is the final batch of demand curve shifters that we will cover in this class. The next video we will construct our supply model.